Hi everyone, my name is Hans-Martin Muench. I work roughly about 20 years in the cybersecurity field. Most of the time I was doing penetration tests and offensive work. During that time I wrote a lot of penetration test reports, and I saw even more when I was on customer side. Sometimes they showed me stuff from other people, and I'm always quite curious about that. I'm the CEO of Mogwai Labs. We are a no-fluff security outfit. We basically do one thing only, and that's penetration tests and doing technical security reviews. So we basically create a lot of penetration test reports by our own. We are really, really small, so I'm not in the position of the CEO that can just say, hey, please write the report. I have to do this by my own, so I can tell you from a lot of my own field experience. The agenda for today, I'm not going to bother you with basic how should a report look like stuff. I think you already know that. If not, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials that show you the basics, how to structure a general report. Instead, I want us to focus on two main topics. The first one is how you can do that in less time, because I think that's that's the one thing that most people are interested in, and also how to improve report quality in general, because I saw some key aspects in some reports from other people where I thought either, why the heck are they doing that? Or, oh, this is really awesome, I need to include that into my own reports. Okay, so the task about reducing report time. I had some personal struggles, more or less, this year, and due to that, I needed to become more efficient. Okay, I have to do more stuff in less time. So I looked at where can I actually optimize my work. And if you are in this field, you quickly realize that penetration test reporting is actually one of your main tasks. In my case, for example, we roughly calculate about 20 to 30% of the project time to actually reporting. So if you think about a 5 days project, I will spend 1 day just doing the report. The fact that I want to optimize this is also related to the fact that no one likes actually doing that stuff. I'm no exception here. So having some ways to do this more efficiently is quite important to me. I have to point out that some of the stuff that I will show to you are just ideas that I came up with. I did not implement them on my own workflow because of various reasons, because, for example, my toolset is something different, but I think it might still have something for you that you can take with your work. Okay, so let's talk about finding templates. They are the best way to reduce your time that you spend on reporting. In ideal case, you can basically create 80% of the actual report by just dropping in some finding templates and adjusting them to your need. And they also have a different purpose. They help you to quickly sync the reporting style between the different team members. If you have multiple people that are doing penetration tests, it's quite important that even if you have a person that is not as good at writing text, creates a more or less similar report than one that has a lot of experience. And doing that with basically providing finding templates is really, really important. I think we can all agree on that, but this brings us to the following question, which you all had if you ever worked in this field. Why don't we have a template for finding X? Okay. You then start to look in your older reports. Maybe you know that you had a similar issue like 2 months ago or something like that, and you then copy that over. You forgot to remove the customer name and stuff like this. This happens a lot. Happens to me, happens to others also. The reason why you don't have finding templates was actually discovered by this man, and this was discovered 50 years ago, or 60, 70 years ago actually. This man is called Cyril Parkinson. And he basically did a research on why bureaucracy is getting bigger and bigger. And he came up with an ironic article and defined several laws. And the most important one is works expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. What does this mean? In practice, I know that I need to create slides for this presentation since several months. When did I finish them? This morning. Okay? And the same applies to you when you're doing reports. The problem here is that the penetration test report normally defines the end product of your testing scope. So you have 5 days to do, 5 days for the entire report or for the entire project. The report will be done on day 5. It will not be done on day 4. If so, then it's more or less an exception. But normally you always will be struck by Parkinson's law. Even if you create the final report on that stage, it's not the real final report because it needs to pass QA first. This normally takes up 2 or 3 days until some of your colleagues has the time. So once you actually have the final report done, you're already working on a different project. Okay? During that time, you don't have any slots available for creating templates out of the report. You are already with your head into a different project and you are already working there. No time to look at the stuff that you did 1 week ago. Here is how they solve Parkinson's law in science fiction. You have Scotty that comes up and says, hey, I need 5 days. And then Kirk says, hey, you have only 4 days. So he's basically shortening the timeline that is available for doing the project. And then Scotty says, okay, and he does it in 4 days. Okay, this is science fiction. This does not work in real life. In real life, you probably say, okay, I will apply shorter timelines, or shorter deadlines. But after 2 or 3 weeks, you're falling back into your own your old habits. And you will create the report, will have the report done on your last day. So I thought, okay, what can we actually do about it? And I always think like, okay, I cannot be the first person who actually has this problem. And how do other people solve this? And one group that has a similar problem are actually developers. They need to create unit tests. So they also don't like to do that. And what they came up with an approach is what they call test-driven development. So the idea is that you're creating the unit test before, and then you do the actual code that should be tested. And you can apply a similar approach to your reporting style. That basically narrows down to the following sentence. You don't have a template for this. And there is a non-zero chance that you will see this in a different environment at a different time. So create a template first and use that to actually include that in your report. This might be a little bit of a bumper because you, for example, might say, hey, I don't like to, my English is not that good, but we have AI for that. I will cover that in a few minutes. And this also has the nice little approach that you're actually going to do your first QA already while you are including the template that you just wrote in your actual report. So you're already doing some quality control there, and this actually works really, really fine. The problem that you might have is that you think that changing habits is hard, and this is definitely true. If you're talking to developers about test-driven development, they say, hey, this is awesome hard. We basically tried it, but we basically skipped it because it was too difficult for us. You are actually in a better position, or you're actually in a similar position at first. For example, you have people in your team that are not good technical writers. If you say to them, hey, please create now templates, they will not create good technical templates. Okay, so you just end up with shitty templates, so you don't want that. However, you're actually in a better approach, or you have in a better position, because not everyone in your team actually needs to follow this approach. This is totally sufficient if you have 2 or 3 people that are really good at writing reports. Give them some extra time that they follow this approach. It's also important that you don't have to do this on every report. If you are already in a hurry and you have a delay, then maybe skip that, just write it down, but still give it a try if you can to. I also want to point out that in Germany, we often have this all or nothing approach. But even if you basically start with that and doing that during the actual test and you stop in the middle of doing that, you have, for example, 2 or 3 templates. 2 or 3 templates are better than none. Just give it a try. Believe me, I basically applied this since the last 4 months, and it really changed the way I do reporting. At the beginning, it takes a little bit longer, but after a while, you will really see that you got templates for nearly everything. I now have a first world problem that I have too many templates, or that I have too big templates. At Mogwai Labs, we normally had the case that, okay, we have a template and we add everything into it, for example, like cross-site scripting. And the idea was then that we actually remove the stuff that you don't need when you're writing the report. Removing is always easier than writing something. So we had one big template, for example, cross-site scripting, and added that everything together. And then we had to cut out the stuff that we don't need. It turns out that this is not the best approach. What I highly recommend to you is that you create different templates based on the following two things. Does the recommendation differ, or is the root cause actually a different one? As an example, we have one template for reflected stored in DOM-based cross-site scripting because the mitigation is always the same. We totally have a different mitigation when it comes to uploading files. Okay, there you cannot say, hey, please apply input validation. You can provide more specific tasks on that. So there is actually the really benefit of having your own template on that. Unfortunately, most of the penetration testing reporting tools, they don't provide you the possibility of having small templates that you can integrate into other ones. But I will complain about pen test reporting tools in a few minutes. So let's talk about AI, because you cannot talk about optimization today without talking about AI. Sometimes people are downgrading AI as a fancy autocomplete, but in your case, this is actually what you want. Okay, I want something that helps me to write stuff. And my approach here is, if it saves me 10 minutes and it does this every time, then it's definitely a time saver. If you're thinking about AI in the penetration testing world, you have basically one problem or two. The first one is, if you want to have a non-generic text, you actually need to provide some context. Okay, so if you have a cross-site scripting vulnerability, you need to provide like which function was affected. You need to provide which parameter was affected. Maybe you provide a proof of concept, and then your LLM will actually create some valuable text that you could actually use. The problem that you normally have is that you don't want your data or your customer data to train a data model in California or something like that. So there's no actual option for that at the moment. The best way to solve this, of course, will be private LLMs. So it would be the perfect execute to buy me a new MacBook Pro and start doing that. However, I don't have the time to do that. So this was not a real option for me at the moment. I still believe that private LLMs are the big way to go, and in 5 years we will all use them. But until then, I use public LLMs like ChatGPT to actually improve my templates. I have friends in the advertising industry, and they tell me, hey, the first stuff that basically got rid out by ChatGPT or by LLMs was texters, because they don't need them anymore. They can create the basic text with an LLM now, and translators. And if you not heard it in my beautiful accent, I'm not a native speaker, so my English is not that good. However, I use this actual prompt to improve my texts when I do my report templates. Okay, I don't do it for the reports, I do it for the templates, and this works quite well. You don't have to copy it. I will share the slides afterwards. So no, but you can, of course, if you want to. If you play around with that for a while and you play with ChatGPT, you end up with creating your own GPTs. This is super easy and super efficient. What I basically did, I created some really good templates, 5 or 6 of them. I crafted them, made sure that the reporting style shows what I actually want. And then I uploaded it to ChatGPT. Okay, no customer data was in there, so no problem from that side. Then I did some tweaking, and after more or less than half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour, I actually had a really nice tool that allows me to create scaffolds for my actual template reports. How does this, or for my findings, how does this look like? Here as an example, let's say, give me a template for SAML XML signature validation, and it basically creates a template that looks quite similar to what I want to use in my actual report. It's not that I want to do this or that I will use this right away. I will do the validation. I will copy it over in my templating report store, but it already helps me a lot. Even if I just have something to write on that I can then use and to change it and to tweak it to fit the actual need that I want. But this is already quite there. It even has to-dos where I should place my screenshots and stuff like that. So this works really well. It always comes up with hallucinations regarding the recommendations. There's always an OWASP cheat sheet template there that does not exist because my 5 templates always included an OWASP cheat sheet. So that's why you need to check on that. But again, the idea is here, I don't need now 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes to create the report template. I only need 10 minutes. Especially if you have people in your team that often have a writing blockade, having them something to start to work with, this is a really, real time saver. Let's talk about optimizing QA. And there's one big problem that I call quality assurance fatigue, so that people actually getting bored and they don't want to do that. The first thing that becomes important here is that you actually think about your pen testing reporting process as a build chain. Okay? You're not building software, you're building a report, but the idea in the process itself is really, really similar. And if you think about what you would recommend to your customers when it comes to build chains, you apply, hey, do automated tests and go shift left. So try to identify the issue quite early, ideally before the test is actually sent over. So what you can basically do, you can create unit tests for your actual for your reports. Here are some ideas. The basic ones, a lot of are already implemented, maybe in your tool, so like finding and searching for placeholders. But you can do a lot of other stuff too. That actually depends a little bit on the tool that you are using. But this is actually some interesting content to actually catch some copy and paste errors that can easily come up into your testing. The goal here is that the pen tester finds this before he basically sends it over to QA. So shifting left, finding this quite early. But you can do this at every step when you're basically shifting your pen test reports from going from QA into the final release, do a final test, for example, that there are no empty pages and stuff like that, always helps. What would be nice, and I did not see this in any of the templates of the penetration testing reporting tools that I saw so far, is actually a template diffing. So you normally have a diffing feature when it comes from the changes that are done by the QA person to the actual report. But what you want is actually having a similar feature a step earlier, so that you can see as the QA person, okay, which stuff is actually part of the template that was used, and which part was actually, or which parts were actually added by the penetration tester themselves. The reason is that you don't have, or it reduces the time that you, when you're doing your QA, spend on stuff that is basically already part of the template that has been tested or read several times before. So doing that can definitely reduce the time here. Unfortunately, as I already told you, this is basically a mock-up that I did in Word. But because I don't see, or I'm not aware of any tool that actually can do that. It also requires linking between the template and the version, the template version that you used and the actual finding, but this actually is doable technically. What you also want to do is what I call reducing click fatigue. So if you ever did spell check or something like that in Microsoft Word, you often end up like doing this, and then you are hitting some, or you did some spell check that basically just got clicked over. If you want to reduce that, what you basically want to do is reducing the total number of clicks so that the entire process is less stressful. And there are some stuff that you can actually do. The first thing that I really recommend to you is that you maintain a central spell check dictionary and actually update that. Okay, a lot of people actually have something like this, but they're not really maintaining it. So my Microsoft Word has no clue what Open API is, or it does not know what sliver or something like that is. So adding these words there and actually distributing it over to all your colleagues will actually reduce the number of clicks that they need to do when doing the test or the QA. And also try to remove stuff that does not need to be spell checked. For example, in our report template, we have a code section where we have code snippets, and you don't need to spell check them, and you can actually disable this in Microsoft Word. Okay, so just reducing the number of time helps a lot on doing that. Now I will rant about reporting tools. If you are looking up reporting tools on the internet, I assume that this is basically the second most development project that every pen tester does, besides maybe writing a C2 tool. So you find a lot of different tools on the internet that some of them are open source, some of them are maintained, some of them are not maintained, but you find a lot of them. Okay. You also find a lot of different in-house solutions that basically were built up by the company or by the team. And if I ask my colleagues or my friends, hey, what are the key features? You come up with stuff like template management, keeping report layout in sync and stuff like that. However, pen test reports, in my opinion, fail a major task. That is actually creating a nice environment where you actually want to write reports. Okay. This, for example, is PwnDoc. And if you tell me that I should spend 8 hours a day in such a small window to create 5 pages of reporting for just one vulnerability, I'm going to say no. Just ask yourself if you would like to write a blog post in one of these tools, and the answer will definitely be no, because they are not made for this. Why? Because the tools are actually created by penetration test reporters or by penetration testers themselves. They are normally not considered a group that is a valid or that is a good UX designer. Okay, so they're not good at creating good user interfaces. And unfortunately, now you know that. You will complain about this every time you use your report tool. I'm going to be honest on that. If you want to have an idea how this actually could look like, so what you could get, please take a look at Obsidian. Obsidian is a notes-taking app, and we use that to switch from Wiki.js internally to Obsidian for our internal knowledge base. And we have to say, hey, the number of entries and the quality of entries in our knowledge base increased a lot. And if you ask people why, they say, hey, because this is actually a good environment to write text. I love to writing text there. It's directly creating a new, it's directly looking like something, and people just love it. Okay. If you want other examples, have a look at different writer apps. They basically have a lot of approaches that you actually want in your reporting task. If you have a tool that is using LaTeX to actually create the PDF, please stop. There's a new shining star, and it's called Typst, and it got everything that you want and you hate about LaTeX is basically removed. It is a 15 megabyte Rust binary. It works in your browser. You can have in your browser previews of the actual slides. You have meaningful error messages. Everything you hate about LaTeX is basically gone. If you want to see this is basically in Visual Code. I can actually edit it here, and the code basically changes over here. So this works quite really well. Okay, because we don't have much time, we are in a hurry. CVSS ratings or severity ratings. CVSS is the base, okay? There's the standard period. You can't not argue with that. We at Mokba more or less used CVSS until more or less before we stopped, because if we don't like it, then we said, okay, we down or upgrade it. So we came up with our own little idea here, but we still provide the CVSS base score. If you ever come with the idea of creating your own custom scoring system, you're basically just creating a different version of the impact and likelihood grid. You basically just have final grids. And as soon as you apply final grids, you have more complex stuff. No scoring system is perfect. There will always be edge cases where you say, okay, this does not really match up. If you think about how your customers actually treat that, they actually don't think in numbers here. They think about severity groups, like is a low vulnerability, is a high vulnerability, is a critical vulnerability. The reason is that severity groups often define the response deadlines. Okay, if they have a high severity group, they need to fix this in 2 weeks. If they have a medium one, they have 2 months, and they don't care if this is a 5.6 or a 5.9. It's not important to them. If they actually care about numbers, they need deterministic numbers, and then you need to stay with CVSS because you want to have comparable numbers that you can compare with your partners. So no one has actually time to deal with your nice little custom scoring system, so just fuck it. Here is how Blaze Security did it. They did it right. They have a vulnerability classification that fits on a half of a page, does not have any technical descriptions, and does not have any numbers. That's really, really nice to understand. We basically use that. So last but not least, let's rant about charts. Penetration testers love charts because we assume that the management loves charts. Okay? That's my quote. What I mean is this. You always have your nice little vulnerability summary where you create your graphs and everything is fine. The problem here is that you're basically comparing groups of data sets, but this does not so your different vulnerability groups, but this does not provide any value to the management. No one actually says to you, oh, I really like how the ratio between my medium vulnerabilities and my high vulnerabilities developed. Okay? That's never coming up. So what the management actually wants, they want to know if they need to do something. Okay? Is something on fire? And your visualization should actually reflect that. H4S Consulting, they basically showed me how to do that. They added traffic lights in their executive summary. Okay, so you know, oh, I need to worry about something like that, or you don't. Okay, everything is fine. Pentest reports did not show any serious vulnerabilities, and everyone understands that. Okay, I don't need to have a pie chart that shows me the relationship that doesn't bring me anything. Summary. Penetration test reports provide a lot of optimization potential. I basically only get started. I have so many stuff I could fill up 1.5 hours just doing that. I highly recommend you to switch to template-driven reporting. This will not change your life, but the number of time or the time that you spend on reporting. Don't bother your customers with things that they don't need. We are a no fluff company. This is basically our philosophy, but this is really, really important. Actually. And if you don't know what your customers need, then talk to them, okay? Talk to them how they actually like the report, what they took out of that. Maybe get some feedback on that will definitely help to improve. That's all. I will make the slides available, hopefully tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Can you turn my microphone on? Okay. Check. Okay. Thank you so much, Hans Martin. Okay, so I'm not going to ask if you have any questions. I would like some volunteers to ask me or ask Hans some questions. So anything that you could help the rest of the audience learn more, give me a question. Anyone? Oh, we've got one right here.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. You said you use Obsidian internally, right?
Yeah.
Why Obsidian? I mean, there is also other note-taking apps, right? Is there anything specific? I think Obsidian was the one with the graph mapping or something.
Yeah.
Right? Is there?
Basically, I saw another blog post where they said, hey, we switched to Obsidian, and I tried it out and really turned out to work quite well. Nice. So I basically copied that over. I think it was from TrustedSec. There's a good article from TrustedSec, how they use Obsidian, also how they made the structure. And I basically copied that one-to-one, made some small adjustments after that. But yeah, it turned out to be quite well.
Okay, thank you.
Time for one more.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. You talk about AI, that you use AI to write reports now to support you when writing report.
I only use it, at the moment, I only use it to create my templates, not the actual report, but this also helps me to reduce my time. I definitely will go for private LLM here. So I assume, again, in 5 years, a lot of the penetration test report will actually be created by an LLM, and you're just navigating the LLM to adjusting the findings here. But I think there's a lot of potential here.
Are you about to use ChatGPT to
Not yet.
write reports? Okay.
No time for that.
For one more question before the next time.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I have just a quick question. In the end, the pen test reports you're giving to the customer, so do you have any experience or things you think are important to reduce the time that you need to, again, clarify everything with the customer? Because that costs lots of time if it's not clear.
We don't have that problem. We write really, really well. No, this is really, really important. I saw reports from German companies. They are shit. Honestly, I'm going to be, please introduce please, sorry for the language, but they are really, really not explaining well. And if you ever will look at a pen test report I spend sometimes 3 or 4 pages in just describing the vulnerability and the actual impact. Maybe it's also because we have quite awesome customers, but they don't come back with a lot of questions regarding the understanding. This might also be because they are quite, we have a lot of application developers and they already have some serious knowledge in IT security. But normally I really spend a lot of time into creating reports, and I actually think that this is a ratio. If you want to measure your quality, how many questions do you get back from your reports? If you don't get any feedback on that, there's one problem that the people did not ask, so ask them. Or if everything was okay, then you also have this as a small feedback. But if there is a lot of confusion on the customer side, and even if you think that your customer actually is a technical understanding person, you actually know that you have a problem in your reporting. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Everyone, another round of applause for Hans Martin.